Mike, how do you look at the draft class when it comes to quarterbacks? It feels like there's a lot of debate on who's a first rounder, who's not. How do you guys?
I don't worry how others judge guys. We're just trying to get to know the pool ourselves. I was just talking to a group of guys yesterday, and last week was a big week for us. We went to Texas, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, for example. And so it's just part of our process, man, getting the complete totality of the process, getting exposure to these guys in as many places as we can. Started in Mobile for me. We had a chance to visit with a significant number of them in Indy, and now we're on the pro day circuit, and so we're going through our normal process. It doesn't appear to be devoid of talent. I like a lot of the guys that I've met, not only their tangible qualities, but their intangible qualities. And so I'm feeling really good about, the trajectory of the group and how we're going to place them on the board.
Mike, where do things stand with Aaron Rodgers today?
He's a free agent. As you guys know, he came to visit last Friday. We had a really productive day. He's been in this thing a long time. I've been in this thing a long time. But it's no substitute for, intimacy and spending time together and getting to know one another in a non-competitive environment. And so that was really good. But I don't have any new updates in terms of where the process is. We'll see where it leads us.
How unsettling is it, or is it, to not have this situation?
I'm really comfortable with being unsettled this time of year, to be quite honest with you. It's about talent acquisition. We got two main means of acquiring talent: free agency and the draft. We multitask. We do both. Those needs that we fulfill in free agency, we do so there, and when we don't, we fulfill it in the draft. And so I just learned over the years that this time of year, although day to day it could be somewhat uncomfortable, it is a process.
Following on that, what's been your sense writ large of all the quarterback movement this offseason? A lot of teams, yourselves included, a lot of money being thrown around.
It's business in the NFL in 2025, man. A lot of ball obviously goes through that position. It can be reflected in the market and so forth, but there's a lot of talented guys out there as well, and the responsibilities that come with those jobs probably equal the money.
Coach, what's your perspective on the Tush push?
I guess my real perspective is the player safety component. There's been discussions about the player safety component. It's why we took it off the field goal in terms of the field goal units. And so I think that's where the discussion will be today. I'm really excited about the discussion today. I'm open-minded. I'm anxious to see what everyone has to say. But the larger part of the discussion for us is around player safety.
Like, what about the kickoff and moving the touchback spot?
Thank you, sir.
Do you think that that's something that should and will happen?
We want to put that play back in the game. We want it to be exciting play. And so all the things that we've done last year and even the discussions that we're having this year is about that and along those lines. And in general, I'm open to it.
Mike, you mentioned the meeting you had with Aaron Rodgers. Have you remained in contact with him? When was the last time you spoke with him?
I have, but I'll leave that between he and I.
Last year, this time, you were saying that you thought there was a lot of meat on the bone left for Justin. What about that didn't particularly work out?
I don't know if any component of it didn't work out. He's a New York Jet. It's free agency. That's what this business is about. Had a really good experience with him. He's a heck of a guy and a heck of a talent. And we had a good experience together.
Mike, there's also a proposal about reseeding in the playoffs where division winners would not get an automatic playoff game. As someone who has been in this league for some time, how do you feel about that proposal?
I'm a division purist, to be quite honest with you. I love the rivalries that is division play. I love the structure of our scheduling that highlights it. I just categorize myself as a division purist. I think the division winner should get a playoff game and a home playoff game.
Mike, those games at the end of the 23 season for Mason Rudolph, did they change the way you thought about him in any way, or maybe reveal something that you had thought before to be true?
I just think anytime you experience something with somebody, there's growth and acknowledge in that regard. And certainly, the way he smiled in the face of adversity and delivered for us was significant. But not that I was shocked by it or didn't think it was within, his framework of capabilities. And so we're excited about having him back. not only in terms of his talents, but the guy that he is. He's a really good teammate. He's a really good football guy.
Before he left a year ago, had he gotten a chance to spend any time with Arthur in that month or two that before the free agency hit?
Not of any significance, no.
Mike, what can the Giants expect as a player and person out of Russell Wilson?
Man, Russ is class in every way. He embraces all that comes with the job, formal and informal. They'll get all of him.
And you know, you guys did not bring him back. What can be anything read into that? I mean, he had some success.
It's free agency.
Mike, how comfortable or uncomfortable would you be with Mason taking QB1 reps when you guys get out on the field?
That's why we brought him back. I'm comfortable with that, man. We've been there before. He's a very capable guy. Sorry, it's a little awkward.
Not a head.
You know what I mean? I hate to talk to you not looking at you.
It's awkward for me too.
Yeah.
Is it much of a change for Mason based off the old system and what Arthur's bringing in?
Certainly there's a change, but, you know, Mason's not a kid, man. He's been around. He's been in multiple systems and situations, and so I don't expect that to be a significant hurdle.
How important is his locker room presence? I mean, it seems like a lot of the guys do like Mason.
No, that's what I mean. He's a good football guy. He's a good teammate. You know, and that's one of the, you know, informal responsibilities of the job, if you will, to connect with your teammates and lead in a lot of instances. And all of that is a really comfortable, natural act for him.
Mike, is Cole Holcomb good to go? Cole Holcomb good?
Yes, he is. Training camp, yes.
On the Tush push player safety, are you going to need, or have you already seen stats that say players get hurt more often than
you know, there's not a big enough sample size to point to the statistics, but, you know, I'm just, you know, I and everyone else are just listening to the perspective of the medical experts as opposed to, you know, statistics, because it's just not a large enough sample size in terms of the number of times the play has been executed, whether it's 2024 or just in general. A lot of other plays, you know, we got a much larger volume to choose from, 40,000 plays a year in football. I think it was, you know, 170 or so tush pushes, to put perspective on it.
Like I know
What's your
there's still
perspective
time
on expanding the replay assist to opening up to more things this year?
Yeah, you know, we're continually in discussions about how to infuse technology into our game for the better. And that's all any of these discussions around replay review and things of that nature are. How do we fluidly infuse technology into our game for the better, to make it more efficient, to make it more entertaining, to assist everyone in their jobs, whether it's players, coaches, officials, or whoever.
Mike, when it comes to the tush push, have your personal views changed at all?
It is not, no.
So where do you stand?
You know, the first time I saw it, I couldn't believe that it was legal because it was illegal on the field goal. That being said, you know, you hate to be against it because, you know, when people are innovative, you want to respect that. And so there's certainly been some teams that have been more innovative than the rest of us in that regard, and you hate to penalize them for it. But again, we got into the discussion on the field goal block because of player safety, and so that still remains to be a component of the discussion.
Just to go back to Aaron Rodgers, I know it's early and you're okay with being unsettled, but is there a date or event by which you would like to have an answer?
I hadn't thought a lot about it. There is no drop-dead date specifically in my mind, no.
Is it your impression, are you able to say, is it your impression whether he actually intends to play and it's right team, right situation, or is that still to be decided?
I'm certainly not going to put words in his mouth or speak for him.
Did he give you any idea on when he'll?
We've had some discussions, but I'll leave them between he and I.
Mike, on those discussions, you made some news last year. When you do talk, I know you won't share the contents of your conversations. Do you text, do you call, or do you FaceTime?
All of the above. Interesting question.
You can look somebody in the eyes.
Yeah.
I know it's not on the agenda here, but there's been some talk about potentially the league wanting to add an 18th game to the schedule. Do you have any thoughts on that prematurely?
I just think they've been, I listen and hear like you guys do. I think it's been thrown about so much with so much regularity, I think it's probably inevitable.
How do you feel like that would impact, number one, if it happens before the CBA is open, then also player safety, everything like that?
You know, it's a lot of CBA-related discussions along those lines. It's not going to get done in a vacuum. It's going to be done in conjunction with other things to address maybe some of the things that you mentioned. But we're probably a little bit ways off from some of the intimate details of some of that secondary stuff.
It's been a while since you've been overseas. What have you thought? Anything you can take into going to Ireland this year?
I know I'm really excited about it, to be quite honest with you, because I just think about the late, great Ambassador Rooney and how fired up he would be about it. And so it makes me smile when I think about it. It's an honor to represent our game and our country over there, and I look forward to doing so.
Have you gotten any hints on the schedule for that?
I have no idea. We'll be there.
Mike, the other day, Troy Vincent was talking about the sportsmanship, the concern about it. He said that he used the word significant increase in violent gestures and taunting. Do you see that? What's your feeling?
I just think we have a responsibility to show the younger players that play this game the right way to do so, the way to interact with your teammates, with opponents. And so that's not something that we run away from. It's something that we embrace. And really his point is just there needs to be a continued emphasis in that regard to highlight our responsibility.
Mike, what are some of the intangible qualities you look for in an offensive line coach?
Light on your feet, adaptability, the ability to adjust midstream, in-game are some core things that are important to me.
Are those qualities that you see carry over with Arthur Smith and his offensive line experience now being an offensive coordinator?
Certainly.
Mike, I'm sure you went over the last 5 games with a fine-tooth comb. Is there anything that stood out to you other than didn't play well enough and lost?
Yeah, we played some elite teams and we weren't one of them, and that's just a sober truth of this business. It's hard, but it's fair, and that's what I love about it. You work all year in an effort to be moving at the right trajectory at the significant point of the year, and the reality of 2024 for us was as the road got narrow, we were not one of the elites, and thankfully for us, we played the elites, and that's something that I'm really interested in, because if you desire to be world champs, man, you want to measure yourself against the very best, you want to play the very best, you want to beat them. We had those opportunities, but we didn't get it done.
So that basically showed you where you needed to go in your eyes, or as an organization as it has?
2024 is 2024. You don't get do-overs, and I'm just, highlighting how it transpired for us. I really don't move in 2025 in pure reaction to what happens, because, circumstances and variables are always changing. Certainly, it's a guiding thought and principle as you move, but it's so many of those.
In your conversations with Aaron Rodgers and maybe in his deliberations, how big a factor is your team's plans in the draft at that position?
We haven't talked about that at all.
With him?
No.
Mike, when it comes to Roman Wilson, at the end of the year, how close was he to kind of getting back into the fold for you guys? What did you need to see from him, and what's the expectations for him heading into year 2?
He was healthy, but healthy and football readiness were two different things, to be quite honest with you. When you're coming back from injury, man, you're essentially getting on a moving train is the analogy that I like to use. And we talk about a guy that had very little NFL experience. And so he was healthy at the end of the year. He was working extremely hard in practice, but a real avenue never presented itself due to the misfortune of others or what have you for him to contribute. But we're expecting really good things for him in his second year. I think that's a reasonable expectation. I think from time to time, guys get faced with injury and it derails their start, but by no means do we feel like it's going to define his career. Calvin Austin is an example of that. Calvin missed a significant portion of his rookie year, similar to Roman, and over the last 2 years he's gone on to move away from that and be a real positive contributor to our efforts, and we expect similar things from Roman.
You mentioned in January you felt like you had an issue with soft tissue injuries. Do you feel like you found some answers or have some changes planned for that?
That's ongoing. The proof is in the pudding, man, as we begin to train and prepare our group, and the results will speak for themselves, but certainly we've been focused and working hard in that area.
We talked about yesterday when we spoke, you talked about the similarities and differences between DK Metcalf and Tush. Obviously, DK is not just a go ball guy. So, what all tangible on the field can DK do to help open things up for your offense, whether it be over the middle of the field or?
Just speaking from a competitor standpoint, someone that's coached against the teams that he was on over the years, there's very little on the football field from a wide receiver perspective that he can't do. He's got short game, he's got long game, he's a combat catch guy, he's got run after, he's a devastating run blocker. We're really excited about the addition of DK Metcalf. And we're going to use all those talents.
Did that come about real quickly, that trade? Or your interest?
It depends on how you define quickly, but certainly his interest in us really made it a fluid endeavor. It's great to, do business with somebody that's really excited about being a Steeler, and he's expressed that continually, and as are we excited about him being a part of us.
Mike, last year when you put Russ in pole position at this time, it was to create team synergy and kind of expedite some of that team development process. How has that impacted this year if you don't have someone that's in pole position? Can you still create team synergy?
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm not really concerned about the hypotheticals at this point. We're still in the talent acquisition, period of time. That's something for, May or so when we get into the team development component, and certainly it'll probably be settled by then.
You had some critical comments recently about your team facilities. Was that fair, or what's your reaction?
I don't have a reaction because I don't know what he said.
Basically, that your training facilities are substandard, so it was after the report card that.
I'm not going to comment on someone else's opinion. Everyone's entitled to theirs. We had a great experience with Naj, man. We appreciate his efforts over the 4 years that he was here with us, and I nothing but wish him the best as he moves forward with his career.
Mike, when a rookie like Roman Wilson misses so much time in camp, what is more troublesome, his inability to kind of develop or your ability to evaluate?
The developmental component, first and foremost. There's no shortcut to skill development, particularly at the wide receiver position, and that comes with reps and repetition, and so it's a cost when you miss those.
Especially in camp preseason.
No question. Just because of the nature of the work and the competition.
Coach, can you speak to the dynamics of the wide receiver room now that you've had Metcalf and George Pickens, two alpha wide receivers, they both want the ball in big game-winning scenarios. How do you plan that division?
We'll figure that out, but that's not a problem as I see it. Guys that want to be significant reasons why we're successful, guys that have the talent to do so, I'll stand in line for those issues.
Were you able to talk to George about the acquisition issue with DK yet at all?
I've talked to George, but I don't think I've talked to George about the acquisition of DK, no.
When you were talking to DK before the trade, did he impress you with did he have a grasp of what you guys were doing and the history and kind of the nuances of the position?
There was never an instance where we got into any of that. He's a professional. He did his homework. More than anything, I could say when we had discussions, you felt his preparedness, his knowledge. It wasn't something that you had to educate him about, but that just speaks to, why we were so excited about having him.
Coach, the Steelers were interested in Kyle Juszczyk. What can you say about what he can do at his age as a fullback?
Man, he's a multi-talented player. We've competed against him a lot over the years in multiple cities. His resume speaks for itself. He needs no endorsement from me.
Mike, what went into the calculus of going after a corner like Darius Slay for 1 year versus maybe someone that could be there for longer? Was it specifically about Slay, or was it about Corey Trice, etc.?
It's about Slay and about, building our team for 2025. We've done short-term business at the cornerback position before, guys like Pat P. Recently as a couple years ago, and so, that's a guy that we've got a lot of respect for. We've competed against him a lot over the years, man. He's a savvy veteran. He knows what he's doing. He's got a really high competitive floor, and all of those are things that are attractive to us as we try to, build a rock-solid defense and team this year.
Adding Juan Thornhill to the mix at safety obviously gives you another ability to run with three safeties again. How do you see that dynamic working with Thornhill and then Minka be able to run a little bit more often?
We're going to certainly mix that up. In today's game, you need three safety structured defense. for multiple tight end sets and situational play. All of those guys are really versatile. We're very familiar with Juan and his talents because we've competed against him. And so, that's going to be a fun endeavor to figure out how to divide the labor up. And that certainly will change from time to time. We expect those guys to be interchangeable pieces and really provide a challenge for the offenses that we compete against.
Mike, what type of role do you envision for Daniel Wekuwale on the defensive line?
Man, this is a guy that really plays blocks and recognizes run schemes extremely well. I expect him to be an anchor point for us in that regard to control the line of scrimmage, particularly in run-down circumstances, and I think his resume really kind of reflects that.
Mike, the Olympics are adding flag football. Is there anybody on your roster right now that you could see playing on a flag football team in the Olympics?
I'm sure there's a lot of guys on my roster that sees themselves representing the U.S. playing flag football, but, I just got a lot of respect for sport and competition, and there's some subtle differences between tackle football and flag football, and I'm not going to assume that tackle football players are the very best option, to be quite honest with you. We'll see. It's going to be exciting and interesting for me. Seems like size is less of a factor in flag football. We might have a bunch of 140-pound guys running around out there. I don't know, but I know it's good for our game, and I'm excited about watching the development of the discussion.
The timing of the games would fall right around the start of training camp. How would you handle that? I mean, would guys get excused to go play in the
I have
Olympics?
not thought about that one iota, and I really don't care. It's 2025. You asked me about 2028?
This time of year, this time.
I know it's a slow news cycle, but I'm not there yet.
The Tush push more?
I don't have my 2028 training camp calendar done yet.
One of the biggest highlights of DK's career, I guess, or the most notable, was chasing down
Buda Baker.
What do you remember of your first reaction when you saw that? I know it was some time ago now, but
when he was at about the 15 to 30-yard line, before it really even got competitive in terms of him running down Buda and tackling Buda, the way he ran by a collection of people at about the minus 15 to the minus 30 was just an incredible thing to see. It looked like he was on a different reel of tape than everyone else. But really it just speaks to will and football character and talent. You got to want to go make plays like that, man, and I just think a play like that, man, is a signature play and reflective of who he is as a football player and a man.
Good thing he wasn't with the Cardinals in 08.
He'd run out of bounds and stuff like Larry. Man.
Apparently we have the same appetite for candy, me and DK. You hear about that?
No, I didn't.
Apparently he eats 4 or 5 candy bars a day.
Really?
No, man.
Really?
That's what he said on a podcast.
He wears it a little differently than you, man.
DK mentioned in his introductory press conference just getting to know you at the Combine. What do you remember just about that process pre-draft and kind of like getting to understand what he was about?
You guys know I enjoy the pre-draft process. It's not only the prep for what immediately lies ahead, but for me it's about just having knowledge of the guys that you compete against around the league. And so that's why I delve into it in that way. He was a part of a really special group that came out of Ole Miss with him. His talents were freakish, to be quite honest with you. And so there were a lot of attractive things that pushed me toward him. But I've been more impressed with what's transpired since he's been in the league, how he's grown and developed as a player and as a man, and that's probably the most significant component of the equation in terms of what brought us together.
Coach, yesterday you spoke to doing your due diligence at the quarterback position. Would you say right now, if you sit here today, that includes potentially drafting one in the first round?
I wouldn't close the door on any component of acquisition at that position.
Mike, you were just talking about DK. How do you file those things away when there's a guy that maybe you looked at before the draft that you didn't get? Like, how beneficial is it 4 or 5, 6 years down the line when maybe you know a guy a little bit better than you would if you weren't out there on the road doing all that?
It's extremely beneficial because when we do our free agent research, it's just a continuation of the base that we already have, as opposed to a get to know. It's like, what has he been up to lately? And that's why we work so hard in draft prep, to have good profiles on these guys, to know their history, their football history, their medical history, their personal history. All of that helps us in draft prep, but if it doesn't come to fruition in the draft, it accelerates our free agency prep. You know, we've competed against those guys a lot. Darius first, competed against him in multiple cities. Man, he's been a top flight cover guy for a long time. He's got good football intellect. It's displayed in his play. Recognition of route combinations, etc. Really kind of defines his game. And Kenny is just a guy that's versatile, man. He's an offensive weapon. He's a special teams weapon. He's a kick returner. He's a tackler on coverage units. He's a football player first, and that's attractive to us.
All right, Coach. Last one. No, you can go. We just got to get
Yes.
There you go.
Awesome. Appreciate it.